The autumn rain pattered against the windows of Manhattan General Hospital as Rachel Wilson clutched her 3-year-old daughter Zoe's hand. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the waiting room, highlighting the dark circles under Rachel's eyes. At 24, she looked much older, worn down by life's unrelenting challenges. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her once vibrant green eyes had dulled with worry. "Mommy, my tummy still hurts," Zoe whimpered, her small face pale and pinched with discomfort. Rachel squeezed her daughter's hand gently, trying to mask her growing panic. This was Zoe's 3rd emergency room visit in 2 months, and each time the doctors found nothing conclusive. Yet Rachel knew something was wrong with her little girl. A mother's intuition screamed at her, even as medical professionals dismissed her concerns as anxiety. "Mrs. Wilson," a nurse called. Rachel didn't bother correcting the assumption about her marital status. It was easier this way. "The doctor will see you now." Rachel lifted Zoe into her arms, feeling the child's slight fever through her thin cotton pajamas. As they followed the nurse down the sterile corridor, Rachel's phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen displayed Nathan calling, her 4th missed call today. Nathan Blake, Zoe's father and CEO of Blake Pharmaceuticals, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies on the East Coast. The man who had promised her the world 3 years ago, before deciding that a pregnant receptionist didn't fit into his 5-year corporate expansion plan. "We need to run some additional tests," Dr. Patel explained, after examining Zoe. His voice was kind but clinical. "Her symptoms suggest something might be happening with her kidney function." Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs, but the last doctor said it was just a virus. "I'd like to be thorough," Dr. Patel replied, making notes in Zoe's chart. "These tests aren't covered by your current insurance plan, but there are payment options." "How much?" Rachel interrupted, already mentally calculating the balance of her nearly maxed-out credit card and the meager remains of her last paycheck. When Dr. Patel mentioned the figure, Rachel felt the floor tilt beneath her. It was more than 2 months' rent on her cramped studio apartment. "I'll figure something out," she said, the words hollow in her throat. Later that night, after finally getting Zoe to sleep, Rachel sat at her tiny kitchen table, surrounded by medical bills, past-due notices, and a half-empty cup of cold coffee. She had been working double shifts at the diner, picking up every extra hour possible, but it was never enough. The tests Zoe needed were just the beginning. What if there was something seriously wrong? How would she afford treatments? Specialists? Her phone lit up again. Nathan. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Rachel, finally. I've been trying to reach you all day." His voice was smooth, authoritative, the voice that closed million-dollar deals and charmed investors. It once made her knees weak. Now it just made her tired. "What do you want, Nathan?" "The company's annual charity gala is next weekend. The board expects to see my family there. It would look good if you and Zoe attended." Rachel laughed bitterly. "Your family? That's what we are now? When it's convenient for your image." "Don't start this again," Nathan sighed. "You know I provide for Zoe. The child support barely covers daycare," Rachel cut in, "and now she needs medical tests that cost thousands. Tests your company's insurance would cover if you had acknowledged her as your daughter on paper." A long pause followed. "What kind of tests? Is something wrong?" For a moment, Rachel considered telling him everything, about the pain, the fevers, the worried looks from doctors. But what would it change? Nathan had made his choice 3 years ago when he'd offered her money to take care of the problem. When she refused, he'd made it clear that while he would provide minimal financial support, he would never publicly claim Zoe as his child. His board of directors wouldn't approve of a scandal, and his fiancée, the daughter of his company's largest investor, certainly wouldn't understand. "Nothing's wrong," Rachel lied. "We're fine. We don't need your charity appearance." After hanging up, Rachel made a decision. She couldn't keep doing this, watching her daughter suffer while begging for help from a man who saw them as an inconvenience. The next morning, she requested a week off from the diner, packed 2 suitcases with their essential belongings, and withdrew the last $342 from her savings account. "We're going on an adventure, sweetie," she told Zoe as they boarded a bus heading west. Her daughter's eyes lit up with excitement, blissfully unaware that they were leaving behind everything familiar. Rachel had a cousin in Portland who had always offered her a place to stay. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was something. A chance to start over somewhere Nathan couldn't find them, somewhere she could build a better life for Zoe. What Rachel couldn't know as the bus pulled away from Manhattan was that Dr. Patel had rushed Zoe's preliminary blood work, concerned by several markers he'd spotted during the examination. He couldn't reach Rachel. Her phone was already disconnected. Following protocol, he placed Zoe's file in the system for follow-up. 3 days later, Nathan was reviewing quarterly reports when his assistant interrupted with an urgent call from Manhattan General. "Mr. Blake, this is Dr. Patel regarding Zoe Wilson. I've been trying to reach her mother, but the contact information is no longer valid. As you're listed as an emergency contact, I needed to inform you. The preliminary tests indicate Zoe may have a rare kidney condition that requires immediate attention." Nathan froze, the words washing over him like ice water. Emergency contact? He vaguely remembered signing something at the hospital the night Zoe was born, before he decided that fatherhood didn't align with his ambitions. "Where are they now?" he asked, already reaching for his coat. "That's why I'm calling, Mr. Blake. They never returned for the follow-up appointment, and according to our system, they've left their registered address. We have no way to inform them that Zoe's condition could be life-threatening without proper treatment." The phone nearly slipped from Nathan's grasp. Life-threatening? His daughter, the child he had systematically pushed away, whose birthday parties he had missed, whose smile he knew only from the occasional photos Rachel reluctantly sent, could be dying. And he had no idea where to find her. "I'll find them," he promised, both to Dr. Patel and to himself. What Nathan didn't realize was that finding a young woman determined to disappear would prove nearly impossible, especially when she believed she was protecting her child from further heartbreak. As Rachel and Zoe crossed state lines, settling into a new life far from Manhattan, the clock was ticking on a medical condition neither of them fully understood. 5 years would pass before Nathan Blake would receive another call about his daughter, this time from Portland Children's Hospital. The Portland rain fell differently than in New York, gentler somehow, a persistent mist rather than angry downpours. Rachel had come to appreciate this subtle difference over the past 5 years, along with many other aspects of her new life in the Pacific Northwest. "Mom, look what I made." 8-year-old Zoe burst through the door of their modest 2-bedroom apartment, waving a colorful painting. Her dark hair, so like Nathan's, bounced in curls around her heart-shaped face. Despite the pallor that never quite left her cheeks, Zoe's eyes sparkled with the resilience of childhood. Rachel set aside the textbook she'd been studying and smiled. "It's beautiful, honey. Is that our building? And that's you, and that's me, and that's Aunt Megan and Uncle Tom." Zoe pointed to stick figures of varying heights. "And that's Dr. Rivera." Rachel's smile faltered slightly at the mention of Zoe's nephrologist. Over the past 5 years, Dr. Rivera had become almost like family, a constant presence as they navigated Zoe's condition. The diagnosis had come just 3 months after their arrival in Portland. A typical hemolytic uremic syndrome, a rare disorder affecting the blood vessels in Zoe's kidneys. Manageable with proper care, Dr. Rivera had assured them, but requiring vigilant monitoring and expensive medications. "How was school today?" Rachel asked, helping Zoe hang her masterpiece on their crowded refrigerator. "Good. Ms. Patterson says I'm the best reader in class." Zoe's pride was evident as she unpacked her backpack. "Oh, and the school nurse wants you to call her. I told her I was extra tired at recess again." Rachel nodded, keeping her expression neutral, while her stomach tightened with familiar worry. Zoe's energy levels had been decreasing lately, despite the medication adjustments. They had an appointment with Dr. Rivera next week, but perhaps Rachel should try to move it up. "Go change, sweetheart. Aunt Megan will be here soon to watch you while I'm at work." After Zoe disappeared into her bedroom, Rachel allowed herself a moment of pure exhaustion. At 29, she had accomplished more than she'd ever thought possible when she stepped off that bus 5 years ago. 2 years of community college, while working nights at a local cafe, had led to a scholarship for the nursing program at Portland State. She was now in her final semester, working part-time at a clinic that accommodated her class schedule. It was a delicate balance: school, work, and most importantly, caring for Zoe. The Oregon Health Plan had been a lifesaver, covering most of Zoe's medical expenses, but there were always additional costs. Specialized foods, supplements, transportation to appointments, days of work missed when Zoe was hospitalized. Rachel never regretted leaving New York, leaving Nathan. Here she had built something real: friendships, community, purpose. Her cousin Megan and her husband Tom had been instrumental, offering their spare room those first few months, helping with childcare, becoming the extended family Zoe deserved. The doorbell rang, announcing Megan's arrival. Her cousin's face appeared, framed by a riot of red curls dampened by the persistent drizzle outside. Ready for the night shift, nursing superstar? Megan grinned, shaking raindrops from her jacket. As ready as I'll ever be, Rachel replied, gathering her bag. Zoe's medication is on the counter. She needs the blue pill at 7 p.m. with food. And can you check her temperature before bed? She seemed a little warm earlier. Megan squeezed Rachel's arm reassuringly. We've got this. Same routine as always. As Rachel drove to work in her used Honda, a significant upgrade from the bus rides of her early Portland days, she allowed herself a rare moment of pride. Despite everything, they were making it. In 3 months, she would graduate. The clinic where she worked had already hinted at a full-time position. Zoe was thriving in school despite her health challenges. They had a community of friends, a safe home, stability. What Rachel couldn't know was that 3,000 miles away in Manhattan, Nathan Blake sat in his penthouse office, staring at a computer screen that had finally given him what 5 years of private investigators had failed to deliver: a lead. Nathan had changed in those 5 years, though few in his social circle would recognize the transformation. Outwardly, he remained the same successful CEO, his company now expanded internationally. He had married Julia Hampton as planned, the merger with her father's company doubling Blake Pharmaceuticals' market value. On paper, his life had followed the exact trajectory he had mapped out before Rachel Wilson had ever entered his life. But inside, Nathan was haunted by the daughter he had abandoned. The night Dr. Patel called had shattered something fundamental in his understanding of himself. The realization that he had a child, his flesh and blood, potentially dying somewhere without his help, had catalyzed a desperation he'd never experienced before. He had hired investigators, offered rewards, searched medical records across the country, all to no avail. Rachel had disappeared thoroughly, legally changing both their last names, leaving no digital footprint. His own attorneys advised him that without a formal acknowledgement of paternity, his rights to information were limited. The irony wasn't lost on him. His own careful maneuvering to keep Zoe out of his public life now prevented him from finding her. "Mr. Blake, your wife is on line 1. His assistant's voice interrupted his thoughts. Nathan picked up automatically. "Julia, I'm in the middle of something." "You're always in the middle of something," Julia replied, her voice tight with the practiced patience of someone accustomed to disappointment. "The foundation gala is tomorrow night. The designer needs you for a final fitting of your tuxedo in an hour." "I'll be there," he promised mechanically, his eyes still fixed on the screen. After hanging up, Nathan returned to the email that had arrived 10 minutes earlier from his most recent investigator. It contained a single line: "Possible match, Rachel Taylor, Portland, Oregon, nursing student at Portland State University. Daughter Zoe Taylor, age 8, patient at Portland Children's Hospital." Attached was a grainy image from a local newspaper showing a group of nursing students volunteering at a community health fair. In the background, partially turned away from the camera, was a woman with chestnut hair pulled into a neat ponytail. Though her face wasn't fully visible, Nathan would recognize the slope of her shoulders, the way she held her head, anywhere. 5 years of searching, and finally, Portland. Nathan reached for his phone, prepared to book the next flight west, when his office door opened. His father-in-law, chairman of the board and majority shareholder, strode in without knocking. "Nathan, we need to discuss the Johnson merger before tomorrow's announcement." Richard Hampton's voice brooked no argument. "The lawyers are waiting in the conference room." Nathan hesitated, his hand still on his phone. The merger represented everything he had worked toward, the culmination of his 5-year plan. Walking away now would jeopardize not just the deal, but potentially his position as CEO. "I'll be right there," he said finally, closing the email. Later that night, as Nathan reviewed the merger documents in his home office, his wife appeared in the doorway, elegant in designer loungewear. "You missed dinner." Again. It wasn't an accusation, merely a statement of fact. Their marriage had long ago settled into a comfortable arrangement, mutual respect, shared goals, separate lives. "Sorry, the Johnson deal is complex. Nathan didn't look up from his papers. Julia studied him for a moment. "There's something different about you lately, ever since your trip to California last month." Nathan finally met her gaze. He had never told Julia about Rachel or Zoe. Their prenuptial agreement had specific clauses about children born before their marriage, clauses designed to protect the Hampton family fortune from potential claims. Revealing Zoe's existence now would not only threaten his marriage, but could trigger a chain reaction affecting company ownership, board confidence, investor relations. "Just tired," he offered. "The expansion is taking more out of me than I expected." Julia nodded, accepting the explanation because it fit their narrative. "Don't work too late. The foundation needs you sharp tomorrow." After she left, Nathan returned to his computer and reopened the email with the Portland lead. 5 years of searching, of regret building like sediment in his soul, had led to this moment. Tomorrow, after the gala, he would fly to Portland. He would find Rachel and Zoe. He would make things right. What Nathan couldn't know was that at that very moment, 3,000 miles away, Rachel was rushing from work to Portland Children's Hospital, where Zoe had been admitted with a dangerously high fever, a complication that would change everything. "We need to start typing potential donors immediately. You'll be tested first, of course." The next 72 hours passed in a blur of blood draws, consultations and vigils at Zoe's bedside. Rachel moved through it all with mechanical precision, her nursing training allowing her to understand each procedure, each medication, each lab result. It was both a blessing and a curse, knowledge that helped her advocate for Zoe, but also illuminated the gravity of their situation with stark clarity. On the 4th day, Dr. Rivera entered Zoe's room with results Rachel had been both anticipating and dreading. "I'm sorry, Rachel. You're not a compatible donor." The words, though expected, Rachel had researched enough to know the statistical unlikelihood of her being a match, still felt like a physical blow. "What happens now?" she asked, watching Zoe sleep fitfully, her dark curls spread across the pillow. "We add her to the National Registry. With her blood type and tissue markers, the wait could be 6 months to a year." Dr. Rivera's voice was gentle but honest. "There are also directed donation options, extended family members, close friends." Rachel nodded automatically, though her mind was racing. 6 months to a year. Would Zoe's failing kidneys last that long on dialysis? And as for family, there was Megan, who had already volunteered to be tested, but beyond that, their biological family was limited. Rachel's parents had died before Zoe was born, and she had no siblings. There was, of course, Nathan, Zoe's father, a biological parent who might be a match. The thought she had suppressed for 5 years suddenly crystallized with terrible clarity. In her determination to protect Zoe from rejection, in her fierce independence, had she potentially deprived her daughter of a life-saving donor. That night, after Zoe had finally fallen asleep, Rachel sat in the hospital hallway with her phone in hand. She had deleted Nathan's number years ago, but some combinations of digits become engraved in memory. Her finger hovered over the call button. What would she even say after all this time? How could she ask for such an enormous thing from someone who had made it clear he wanted no part in their lives? Before she could decide, a nurse approached with a tablet. "Ms. Taylor, we need your signature on these registry forms." As Rachel signed the documents, the nurse continued conversationally. "Dr. Rivera mentioned you're in nursing school. That's wonderful." "Final semester," Rachel replied automatically. "Though I'm not sure how I'll manage with Zoe's situation." "You'll find a way," the nurse assured her. "My son was treated here 10 years ago, leukemia. I thought my world was ending, but here we are. He's in college now, and I've been nursing for 8 years. Rachel managed a small smile. "That gives me hope. That's what this place runs on," the nurse said, gesturing to the pediatric ward around them. "Hope and science, in equal measure." As the nurse walked away, Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from Megan. "Just got the call to come in for donor testing tomorrow. Keeping fingers crossed. Tom says not to worry about rent this month. We've got you." Tears sprang to Rachel's eyes. In the midst of this nightmare, she was surrounded by so much love. Her chosen family had stepped up in ways her daughter's biological father never had. Rachel put her phone away without making the call to Nathan. She had protected Zoe this long. She would find a way through this too. What Rachel couldn't know was that 3,000 miles away, Nathan Blake was boarding his private jet to Portland, the foundation gala barely over. the ink still wet on the Johnson merger documents. In his briefcase was a file containing everything his investigators had uncovered: Rachel's address, her work schedule at the clinic, Zoe's school information. There was no mention of Portland Children's Hospital or any serious medical condition. His investigators had been focused on locating them, not accessing protected medical records. Nathan's mind raced as the jet prepared for takeoff. What would he say to Rachel after 5 years of silence? How would he explain his sudden appearance to Zoe, a child who likely had no memory of him? The questions that had seemed academic during years of fruitless searching were now immediate and daunting. Mr. Blake, we're cleared for takeoff. Flight time to Portland is approximately 5 hours and 20 minutes. The pilot's voice came through the intercom. 5 hours. After 5 years of searching, 5 hours seemed simultaneously an eternity and no time at all. As the jet climbed into the night sky, Nathan opened his laptop to review what he knew about Rachel's new life. The transformation was remarkable, from struggling single mother waiting tables to nursing student on the cusp of graduation. She had built something impressive from nothing, all while raising their daughter alone. Their daughter. The phrase still felt foreign in his mind. Nathan had spent so many years compartmentalizing Zoe's existence, treating her as an abstract concept rather than a living, breathing child. His child. A girl who would now be 8 years old, who would have likes and dislikes, fears and dreams, a personality entirely her own that he knew nothing about. The weight of all he had missed pressed down on him with physical force. First steps, first words, first day of school, birthdays and Christmases, and ordinary moments that, strung together, formed a childhood he had chosen to ignore. Nathan closed the laptop, unable to bear any more reminders of his failure. Outside the window, darkness had enveloped the plane completely. It struck him as an apt metaphor for the journey ahead, flying blind into a situation he couldn't control, toward people whose lives had moved forward without him. The jet hit turbulence, causing Nathan to grip the armrests. He wasn't afraid of flying, he was afraid of landing, of facing the consequences of choices made by a younger, more selfish version of himself, of looking into the eyes of a daughter who might not want to know him, of hearing Rachel tell him justifiably that he was 5 years too late. Meanwhile, back in Portland, Rachel was gently shaking Zoe awake for her midnight medication. The girl's eyes fluttered open, glazed with fever, but still bright with the innate optimism of childhood. "Mum," she whispered, "I had a dream about angels." Rachel smoothed back Zoe's damp curls. "What kind of angels, sweetie?" "The helping kind. They were bringing me a special gift." Zoe's voice was dreamy, floating on the edge of consciousness. "Do you think angels are real?" "I think there are all kinds of angels," Rachel replied, helping Zoe take her medicine. "Some with wings, some who look just like regular people." As Zoe drifted back to sleep, Rachel checked her temperature, still elevated but lower than before. A small victory in a war they were fighting hour by hour. Outside the hospital room window, the Portland skyline twinkled with lights, the city continuing its rhythms, while inside these walls, time seemed suspended in the space between heartbeats. Rachel didn't know that at that very moment, a plane was crossing the country, bringing with it a reckoning 5 years in the making. She didn't know that by morning, the carefully constructed boundaries of their new life would be tested by a knock on the hospital room door, a knock that would bring a man from their past into their precarious present. What none of them knew, not Rachel, not Nathan, not the doctors, was that the timing of this reunion wasn't just coincidence, but the catalyst for a revelation that would change everything they thought they understood about Zoe's condition and her future. Dawn broke over Portland, with tentative fingers of light pushing through persistent clouds. In room 304 of Portland Children's Hospital, Rachel woke with a start, her neck stiff from sleeping in the bedside chair. Zoe was still asleep, her breathing more regular than it had been yesterday, her skin less flushed with fever. A soft knock at the door preceded a nurse Rachel recognized from the night shift. "Dr. Rivera would like to see you in her office when you have a moment." Zoe's latest labs just came back. Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs. "Is it bad news?" The nurse's expression remained neutral. "She just asked me to bring you down when you're ready. I can stay with Zoe." 10 minutes later, Rachel sat across from Dr. Rivera, trying to decipher the woman's carefully composed features. After 5 years of working with Zoe's condition, Rachel had become adept at reading medical professionals, but Dr. Rivera's face offered no clues. "We've reviewed Zoe's comprehensive genetic panel," Dr. Rivera began, opening a file. "As you know, we've been treating her AHUS as idiopathic, without a clear genetic cause, because earlier tests were inconclusive." Rachel nodded. They had discussed this many times over the years. "The advanced sequencing we ran yesterday identified something we missed before." Dr. Rivera turned her computer screen so Rachel could see a complex chart. "Zoe has a very rare variant of AHUS linked to a mutation on chromosome 1. This particular mutation is extremely uncommon, documented in fewer than 50 cases worldwide." Rachel processed this information, her nursing training helping her grasp the implications. "Does this change her treatment plan?" "Potentially, yes. This variant responds exceptionally well to a specific monoclonal antibody therapy that's currently in clinical trials." Dr. Rivera leaned forward, her professional reserve giving way to cautious optimism. "Rachel, this therapy has shown remarkable results in similar cases. Some patients have experienced complete remission of symptoms." Remission? The word felt foreign in Rachel's mouth after years of managing, not curing, Zoe's condition. "You mean she might not need a transplant?" "It's too early to make that determination, but this finding opens options we didn't have before." Dr. Rivera hesitated. "There's one complication. The clinical trial is highly selective. Participants need to undergo extensive genetic profiling, including testing of biological parents to confirm inheritance patterns of the mutation." Rachel froze. "Both parents?" "Ideally, yes. This particular mutation follows an autosomal dominant pattern, which means Zoe likely inherited it from one parent. Identifying which parent carries the mutation helps researchers tailor the treatment protocol." The implications crashed over Rachel like a wave. After 5 years of carefully constructed independence, after building a life where Nathan Blake existed only as a ghost at the edges of their reality, she was being asked to invite him back into their lives. For Zoe's sake. "What if that's not possible?" Rachel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Rivera's expression was compassionate but firm. "Zoe can still participate in the trial without paternal testing, but her protocol would be less optimized. In these rare conditions, every data point matters for treatment efficacy." As Rachel walked back toward Zoe's room, her mind raced with impossible calculations. Should she attempt to contact Nathan now? Would he even respond? And if he did, how would she explain to Zoe who this stranger was and why he suddenly mattered? Lost in these thoughts, Rachel nearly collided with a tall figure standing outside Zoe's door. She looked up, an apology forming on her lips, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Nathan Blake stood before her, the 5 years since their last meeting, etched in subtle lines around his eyes and mouth. His dark hair was shorter, touched with silver at the temples. He wore jeans and a simple button-down shirt, rather than the impeccable suits she remembered, but there was no mistaking him. "Rachel," he said, her name sounding strange in his voice after so long. She took an instinctive step backward. "How did you find us?" "It took a long time," he admitted. "I've been looking for 5 years. The revelation struck Rachel speechless. 5 years. While she had been building a new life running from the past, he had been searching. Why? Before she could form a coherent response, the door to Zoe's room opened and the nurse stepped out. "Oh, good. You're back. She's awake and asking for you." Nathan's gaze moved to the door, his expression a complex mixture of anticipation and terror. "Is that—" Rachel found her voice. "You can't just show up here after 5 years and expect to walk into her life. She doesn't know you. She doesn't even know you exist." "I understand that," Nathan said quietly. "I'm not here to disrupt your lives, I just—" He hesitated, seeming to struggle with words, unusual for a man whose eloquence had once been legendary in boardrooms. "I needed to see her, to know she's okay." A bitter laugh escaped Rachel. "She's not okay. She has a rare kidney disorder. She's been fighting it for years while you were—" "What? Running your company? Expanding globally? Marrying your investor's daughter?" Nathan flinched as if struck. "I didn't know she was sick, not until Dr. Patel called that night, after you'd already left New York. I've been trying to find you ever since." The mention of Dr. Patel from Manhattan General sent Rachel's mind spinning back to that rain-soaked night when she'd made the desperate decision to leave. Dr. Patel called you. You listed me as an emergency contact when she was born. When you disappeared, he reached out about her preliminary test results. Nathan's voice dropped lower. Rachel, why didn't you tell me she was sick before you left? The question hung between them, layered with 5 years of silence and separation. Rachel opened her mouth to respond when a small voice called from inside the room. Mom, who are you talking to? Rachel closed her eyes briefly, gathering strength. Then she looked directly at Nathan. Wait here. Inside, Zoe was sitting up in bed. Her color markedly improved from yesterday. I heard voices, she said curiously. Rachel sat on the edge of the bed, taking Zoe's hand. How did one explain something like this to an 8-year-old, especially an 8-year-old fighting a serious illness? Zoe, honey, there's someone outside who would like to meet you. Rachel paused, searching for words that wouldn't feel like lies but wouldn't overwhelm Zoe either. He's your father. Zoe's eyes widened. My dad? The one in your old pictures? Rachel nodded, surprised. She kept only one photo of Nathan, hidden in a box of keepsakes. She hadn't realized Zoe had found it. I saw it when I was looking for the sparkly clips for my birthday, Zoe explained, reading her mother's expression. You looked happy in the picture. We were then, Rachel admitted softly. Things got complicated after that. Zoe considered this with the remarkable clarity children sometimes possess. Is he nice? The question, so simple yet so loaded, caught Rachel off guard. Was Nathan nice? The ambitious CEO who had offered her money to take care of the problem when she told him she was pregnant. The man who had chosen his career over acknowledging his own child. The figure who had apparently spent 5 years searching for them. He's complicated, Rachel finally answered. But I think he wants to meet you very much. Zoe nodded solemnly. Okay, I want to meet him too. When Rachel opened the door and beckoned Nathan inside, she watched his face transform at the sight of Zoe. Whatever mask of corporate confidence he had worn for years fell away completely. In its place was raw emotion, wonder, grief, love. Emotions she had never seen him express, even in their most intimate moments together. Hello, Zoe, he said, his voice barely steady. I'm Nathan. Hi, Zoe replied, studying him with unabashed curiosity. Mom says you're my dad. Nathan nodded, seemingly unable to speak. Where have you been? The question came without accusation, just a child's natural curiosity. Nathan moved closer, still maintaining a respectful distance from the bed. I've been in New York, but I've been looking for you for a very long time. Why? Such a simple question, yet it cut to the heart of everything. Rachel watched Nathan struggle for an answer that an 8-year-old would understand. Because I made a mistake, he finally said. A big one. I thought other things were more important than being your dad. I was wrong. Zoe considered this. Mom says everyone makes mistakes. It's what you do after that matters. Nathan's eyes met Rachel's over Zoe's head, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Your mom is very wise, he said softly. The conversation that followed was stilted at first, then gradually more natural as Zoe's innate friendliness bridged the awkward gaps. She showed Nathan her drawings, told him about her school, asked questions about New York. Not once did she mention her illness, though the hospital room, the IV line, the monitors told their own story. When Dr. Rivera appeared for morning rounds, Rachel pulled her aside and explained Nathan's presence. The doctor's eyes widened slightly with recognition. Blake Pharmaceuticals was, after all, a major player in the medical field, but she maintained her professional demeanor. Mr. Blake, I wonder if I might speak with you and Ms. Taylor about Zoe's condition and treatment options. What followed was a surreal conference in Dr. Rivera's office, where Nathan listened with growing horror to the details of Zoe's 5-year battle with HS. The specialists she had seen, the medications tried, the hospitalizations endured, the genetic breakthrough that offered new hope but required parental testing. Throughout, he asked intelligent questions, took notes, absorbed information with the same intensity he brought to business acquisitions. I'll be tested immediately, he said when Dr. Rivera explained the trial protocol. Whatever Zoe needs. Later, as afternoon shadows lengthened across the hospital room, Rachel found herself alone with Nathan in the hallway, while a child life specialist engaged Zoe with an art project. Why did you really come looking for us? Rachel asked. the question that had been burning inside her all day. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When Dr. Patel called that night and said Zoe might have a life-threatening condition, something broke inside me. All the walls I'd built to compartmentalize, to justify my choices, they just collapsed. I realized I'd been telling myself a story about who I was and what mattered, and it was the wrong story. He looked through the window at Zoe, focused intently on her drawing. I've spent 5 years trying to find you, not to disrupt your lives or to claim some kind of paternal rights I hadn't earned, just to know she was alive, to see her face, to somehow make amends if that was even possible. And your wife, Rachel asked. Your company? Your perfect life plan? Julia and I separated last year, Nathan said quietly. The company is still successful, but I stepped down as CEO 6 months ago. Stayed on as chairman, but with a much reduced role. The revelation stunned Rachel. Nathan Blake stepping away from the corporate power he had prioritized above all else. Why? Because none of it meant anything anymore, he said simply, not without making this right first. 3 weeks later, Zoe was enrolled in the clinical trial, with both Rachel and Nathan confirmed as genetic donors. The rare mutation had come from Nathan's side, a discovery that seemed to affect him deeply. Each day he appeared at the hospital, sometimes bringing books or art supplies for Zoe, other times just sitting quietly while she slept. Never pushing, never assuming rights he hadn't earned, but steadily, patiently present. Gradually, Zoe began to look forward to his visits. She asked questions about his life, showed him her school projects, taught him the complicated clapping games she played with friends. Nathan absorbed it all with a humility Rachel had never seen in him before. 6 months after Nathan's unexpected appearance, Zoe was released from the clinical trial with remarkable news. Her kidneys were showing significant improvement. The specialized therapy, tailored to her genetic profile, was working better than anyone had dared hope. She'll need ongoing monitoring, of course, Dr. Rivera explained during their final consultation, but at this rate she may achieve full remission within a year. That evening, Rachel, Nathan and Zoe celebrated with a picnic in the small park near Rachel's apartment. As Zoe ran off to explore the playground, her energy levels higher than they had been in years, Rachel and Nathan sat side by side on a bench, watching their daughter in comfortable silence. I've been offered a teaching position at Portland University Medical Center, Nathan said eventually. Research division, focusing on rare genetic disorders. Rachel turned to him, surprised. You're moving to Portland? I've rented an apartment near the university, he confirmed. If that's okay with you and Zoe. I don't want to intrude, but I'd like to be part of her life. Whatever role you think is appropriate. Rachel studied the man beside her. So different from the ambitious CEO she had known in New York, yet somehow more authentic, more human. She'd like that, Rachel said finally. She asks about you on the days you don't visit. Nathan's smile was tentative but real. And you? Would it bother you having me nearby? The question hung between them, laden with their complicated history. Rachel considered all they had been through, the hurt, the abandonment, the years of struggle, but also the unexpected redemption of recent months. The way Nathan had shown up day after day, not demanding forgiveness, but simply offering support. The way he looked at Zoe, not as an obligation, but as a miracle. I think, Rachel said slowly, that sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the most important journeys. As they watched Zoe climb confidently to the top of the slide, her laughter carrying across the park, Rachel felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but the possibility of it. A future unfolding with unexpected new chapters. She told me about her dream, Nathan said quietly. The one about angels bringing her a special gift. Rachel nodded, remembering that feverish night in the hospital. I think maybe she was right, he continued, his voice thick with emotion. But I'm not the angel in that story. You are, Rachel. You saved her in every way possible. I'm just grateful for the chance to be part of the next chapter. As the setting sun painted the Portland sky in shades of pink and gold, Zoe ran back to them, her eyes bright with life and possibility. Whatever came next, recovery, challenges, the careful rebuilding of fractured connections, they would face it together, a family remade not by obligation, but by choice, by the long journey back to what mattered most.